Hello, everyone. I hope everyone's having a great Monday and had a great weekend. I wanted to welcome everyone to today's panel, which is called A Student Experience from Alumni Perspectives. Before we get started, I just have a few agenda items that I just wanted to run by you guys. Please note that this event will be recorded. So for our attendees, please make sure you are on mute for the entire duration of today's panel. At the end of today's panel, we do have a Q&A portion that we're going to allow our attendees to ask questions for our panelists. So if you do want to ask any questions throughout the entire duration, please use the chat feature for any questions that you would like to ask. And then again, just because this event is recorded, please note that we will share the recording with everyone following the event. So in case you weren't aware when you first joined, please just note that you keep yourself muted, and you're also welcome to turn your camera off as well if you're not comfortable. For today's panel, we have three ASU alum who will be kind of just answering questions and just providing a general overview of their recruiting experiences when they attended Arizona State University. So we have three alum that will be providing their different experiences and perspectives of when they were a student. So they will be providing great information and great insight into not only what it kind of like recruiting practices for engaging with students, but also alumni as well. Before we dive in and let our panelists kind of provide a brief overview of themselves, I just want to kind of introduce myself just so you know a little bit more about my role with Career and Professional Development Services. So my name is Tori Herbert. I'm a recruiting coordinator on the Recruitment and Talent Services team with Career and Professional Development Services. So what my role entails is I connect and engage with employers and help them develop and create recruiting strategies that they can implement at ASU and other universities to not only engage with Sun Devils, but also to engage and recruit our alum as well. So now that you know a little bit more about my role with Career Professional Development Services, I'm going to kick it off to each of our panelists and have them provide a brief overview of themselves, their role, and who their organization is with. So first, I'm going to kind of kick it off to Cody to introduce himself.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Cody Graham. I'm the president at Neon Logistics, and I graduated ASU in 2012 with a marketing degree. So yeah, go Devils.
Thank you, Cody. And then next we have Alexandra.
Yeah, my name is Alexandra Obiroba, and I graduated from ASU in 2018 in business communication and business Spanish. And I currently am a channel coordinator at the ASU Foundation. So I manage a few of our student fundraisers and connect with, those are current students. And then I also have partnerships within our colleges for fundraising efforts and strategy.
Thank you, Alexandra. And panelist will be Myra.
Hi, everybody. My name is Myra Francisco. I graduated from ASU in December of 2020, so a little less than a year ago. I'm currently working for the Government Accountability Office as an analyst. So the Government Accountability Office, or GAO, as a federal agency that's part of the legislative branch, and we work to provide Congress and other federal agencies nonpartisan fact-based information to help them improve their efficiencies and save taxpayer money. So right now, currently working on issues related to trafficking and illicit finance.
Thank you, Myra. And thank you also, Alexandra and Cody, for your introductions. So now that everyone knows a little bit about my role and our panelists, now we're going to kick it off into the panel portion of today's event. For today's panel, we have a list of pre-made questions that I will be asking our panelists. Please know, like I mentioned in the beginning of this event, if you have any questions that you would like to ask our panelists, please use the chat feature to submit your questions. We do have a Q&A portion that will be following the panel portion of today's event that will be kind of answering and asking these questions that you all have. We will do our very best to answer all those questions during the Q&A portion. However, if there's some questions that we do not have time to answer, I will personally follow up with each of you individually following the duration of the event to make sure your questions are all answered and to make sure you have the necessary information and or resources that you need to. So the first question I'm going to kick it off to ask our panelists is, especially reviewing your experience here as a student. Can you share an example or even a few examples on how you connected with employers on campus, whether it might be at a past career fair, other campus events that either may be part of a student club, group, or coalition, or possibly a fraternity or sorority hosted, or maybe another professional development event that you thought would be was a great fit or beneficial for during your recruiting experience?
Yeah, I can kick it off maybe. So I think, one of the things that stands out to me was the career fairs that I was able to attend. Just having a whole room of people to interact with and just learn about, different jobs and their roles. That was really eye-opening for me. I think when I was younger, it was a little bit more intimidating because I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. But at the same way, it's a great way to learn about the different types of roles and jobs that are out there, and some of the other things that come with like a job. So like either healthcare, or, other benefits as well. And something else that stands out to me too is I did have a couple presentations in my classes where employers like Teach for America would come into our classroom and just give a little brief presentation, which was really nice because it's in a little bit smaller of a setting. You have the chance to interact with somebody who's either going to be working for Teach for America or had already been through the process of working with Teach for America. So I thought that was a really good example. And then one other thing to me that stood out in my experience, and it wasn't on ASU's campus, it was on a different campus for a professional development thing I was doing, is there was a presentation that my current organization, actually GAO, gave on their diversity and inclusion efforts at the organization, which is something that I hadn't really seen before from a recruiting perspective. That was a really great way to learn more about the agency, but also to learn more about their values and their efforts to increasing their diverse workforce and things like that. So those were some of the things that stood out in my experiences.
Yeah, I would piggyback off of Myra. Similar experiences where I definitely met a lot of employers through career fairs, but I did have a unique experience as well. I was a student worker for the Career and Professional Development Services as a student. So I got to see a lot of our employers come into the door and either host their tabling events or even some of their on-campus interviews, things like that, that I definitely had more of an ability to connect with them in person. Also, we did have quite a few networking opportunities. So any of those career mixers definitely was a great opportunity to connect with those employers.
Absolutely. And I'll say a couple of the clubs that I was involved with also had people come speak. And that was really cool for me because I got to just have a much more intimate conversation after they spoke and things like that, to know exactly what the situation was all about. Because usually it wasn't a recruiter. So it was somebody that's going to shoot you straight in those situations. So that kind of took me down different paths in my career just based on a 5-second conversation I had with someone after a club event. So I would look for situations like that, and the career fairs are huge. Like, I'm pretty highly involved in our recruiting now that we do for my company, and the career fairs are the main source that we look for new candidates.
Great, thank you. And then just kind of piggyback off of kind of like the information that you guys were kind of providing, and just the importance of some of these kind of recruiting events, such as like career fairs, for example. So when you guys were students and you would kind of attend these kind of career fairs, how would you prepare for these conversations with employers? Do you do like research before you attend these career fairs, just whether it might be looking at the list of employers that are attending? Do you kind of research like opportunities such as looking at their websites and what kind of opportunities they're currently hiring for? How do you kind of prepare for those kind of discussions or conversations with employers?
Yeah, what I did whenever I kind of thought I was going to go to law school actually throughout the whole process in college. So I didn't pay as much attention to career fairs as I wish I had in my younger times. And so my senior year, I just went through and researched every company that was hiring for potential industries that I would be interested in, and kind of looked at the company, looked at the role, looked at the base pay, things like that, and tried to determine where I wanted to spend my time with what booth I was going to go to. And I was very focused, where I limited it down to like 10 to 20 companies, and I wasn't just wandering around the career fair. So, and then of course, making sure your resume is on point, something that I did very much so, and make sure you're dressed nice, clean, not just coming from class. So yeah, that's very important as well.
Yeah, I'll echo that I think when I was younger and I first went to the career fairs, is a lot. I didn't do as much prep. And I think that was mainly because like, I'm like, oh, I still have like 2 more years until I have to like find a full-time job. I don't need to worry about it as much. But then, as I got a little bit older, I definitely did do a lot of preparation, making sure I knew what the company was, what the role was and some of the duties that were associated with that particular role. And also kind of trying to prep some questions I could just ask them, just to, learn more about what they were doing, and really just to be as informed as possible. So that way, when we were having our conversation, I would have just more context for what they were saying.
Yeah, I definitely had similar experiences too. I believe I started as a freshman going to a few career fairs just to rip off the Band-Aid, practice a little, get over any fears and, start so that when it comes time when I was actually really interested in looking, that I'd perform better and it would come more naturally. So definitely started early, but I would say the prep work before really is key for a student perspective. Being able to clean up on your resume, your elevator pitch, kind of thinking about those key points too, that as a student that you could bring to the table to talk with employers about. And then like Myra said too, asking those questions of being able to really connect with them. And then, interviews are a double-sided conversation really, where you want to make sure that you're interviewing the company for the right fit for you too. So.
Thank you all. And so this also moves us into the next, I think, good question about the importance of networking. And I think especially now as we're kind of still figuring out COVID and also with the Delta variant and kind of being in this virtual/hybrid modality, the importance of networking, I think is super important. And it's kind of something that is important in anybody's professional experience. And so, especially when you all were students, did you have a mentor, another alum, a staff or faculty member at the university, or even another professional that you regularly connected with to just kind of discuss like what to do in regards to your professional experience, what kind of goals to kind of keep in mind, or even just to kind of connect with, whether it might be like through the ASU mentor network or just through another relationship or network?
Yeah, I connected a lot with, I worked at the Career Professional Development Services, so I connected with a lot of those staff members. A lot of staff are usually alum as well, so getting their experiences. But for the most part, it was really just learning and from others' experiences, whether that was professors to staff that you engage with, and then too, like your career coaches, career advisors, those individuals that are helping you along your way. Even academic advisors have a lot of knowledge too. So being able to connect with them, even though not necessarily always like a mentor connection that you continue out throughout your career, it's good to be able to potentially ask those questions. So I did a lot of connections with those staff.
Yeah, I definitely did the same thing. I really leaned on my career consultant, I think is the correct term now at ASU, and immensely. I wish I would have gone in there twice as much as I did now looking back. And just annoyed them. So, cause you got to do that. You got to play offense. So, that's the main thing I did. So, and it was very helpful.
Yeah. I'll definitely echo what Alexander and Cody both said. I mean, ASU has a ton of resources to help connect students with professionals that are interesting to students. So, one of the things I remember, I majored in political science, but I also did a minor in statistics. And one of the professors I had, he had done some work on college completion rates actually for ASU. And that was something that I found really interesting. So being able to connect even with the professors themselves and talk about, how did you get to your role? How did you get to do the work that you were doing was something that was really important for me, because it helped me see how what I was learning in the classroom could actually translate into an actual career. Which is really special.
And then that kind of dives into our perfect next question. So just kind of keeping in mind all these experiences that you had as a student, not just in the classroom, but your conversations with your academic advisor, with your professors, with other professionals in your network. How did all these different experiences when you were a student at Arizona State University, how did that help you find either that first position after graduation, or help you kind of find whether it might be a specific organization that you wanted to look for, or maybe just kind of getting more details or information to like the industry that you maybe want to pursue after graduation. Can you kind of provide some examples or kind of help kind of share how do these different experiences kind of shaped overall what you did after you graduated?
Yeah. So talking to my career consultant, it completely changed my path that I was on. I was going to go to law school. I already said that, but and I would literally go and talk to this lady and be like, hey, my parents want me to do this. I don't know if I want to do this. I talked to this professor that it's a lawyer and he hates it. He hates his life. He told me not to do it. I don't know how I feel. I'm conflicted. And basically she gave a very unbiased, third party account of what I should do. And then when I was looking at companies, she had worked out and, in the workforce, and it helped. And it's like, well, I worked here and I did this. And they inside the ASU, team, they know a lot of these employers based on the students that they talk to, and then the students they connected, for good and bad. So they kind of have that insight look into what the position may be, more so than a recruiter might tell you. So that helped me immensely, and ultimately guided where I chose and the career that I took. So it was very impactful.
I too connected with still of my staff that I worked with, and I was looking for internships as a student, and they recommended one of the internships at the YMCA. So I looked into that more, applied, and then I eventually had a full-time offer and took a position there. So it really did, especially that internship and connecting and being able to network really started my career after college. So really grateful and that I was able to have that experience, and then, that it all aligned in that sort of way, so that I could be where I am now today, basically.
Yeah, and then kind of to piggyback off of that, so I was actually a transfer student. So I came to ASU during my third year of college. And, when I first sat down with my academic advisor, one of the things I stressed to her was like, I really want to do internships because I feel like that's really valuable, work experience that I can translate into like an actual first time job. So I remember, very distinctly having a conversation of like how we can structure classes, like what classes to take, but also to be mindful of like timing of the classes. So I can actually go do the part-time work, or in some cases actually get credit for the internships, which was really helpful. And in terms of like how that situated me to get where I am today. So this is my first job out of college. I did a lot of internships in the policy world, prior to this with, various organizations and, nonprofits and think tanks. So I think just that emphasis on like getting internship experiences to put on the resume is what made me so well positioned to get to the place that I am today.
That was all great information. So just using these experiences when you were a student at Arizona State University, and kind of how it helped shape and finding that either first position outside school or help you kind of better prepare as a professional for the workforce after graduation. Just overlooking your time here at the university, is there anything you would look back on and you wish that you have done differently with your recruiting experience, such as maybe in the past attending more career fairs that were hosted throughout the university? Is there anything that you would do that you look back on your time as a student that you would think, this is what I think I should maybe, now knowing that these tools, additional resources that university provides, what would you do to kind of help with your recruiting experience?
I would start off, I think I would definitely go back and make sure that I did additional career exploration and kind of, how Cody was mentioning how he didn't want to be a lawyer, how really that can shape your future, right? You are in your major at school, and then being able to really look into what kind of careers are potential opportunities for you, or even just options as well. So definitely being able to look a little bit more, maybe apply for things that wouldn't necessarily align with the career that I thought I was wanting, and see if maybe those were the skill sets that I had. So, but I know that there's a ton of resources out there to continue to look into those different industries and maybe have done a career or a major change or something like that. But definitely more of exploring the different pathways and options.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would have attended more career fairs even when I was younger, even if I wasn't prepared. Just get used to being in the room. going out to places. And also that's also how you could do your research to learn more about different companies, different things that are out there. I was from a smaller town, so I was pretty unaware to the big world. So yeah, so of course I got in one industry and now I'm still here 10 years later. So that can happen. So just look out. Yeah, so it's super important, right? Something I wish I had done is get more experience interviewing. And I don't know what resources are there for ASU. I'm sure there are because I clearly didn't do them. But having more experience interviewing is so important in that elevator pitch situation. And then beyond that, when you get into the interview, you know, it's crazy. So yeah, I would have done that for sure, because I just kind of did it all like, oh, senior year, this is what you do. So definitely would have done that.
Yeah, interviewing was always a challenge for me. I mean, it still is today. And yeah, it's just one of those things you just have to practice, right? It's just a matter of practice. But one of the things I wish I had taken more advantage of, and I guess I probably still can as an alum, but is the alumni network. I mean, ASU graduates so many people every year, and they're all doing such incredible things. And I'm sure that there are so many people in my field of work, so like policy or education policy, that are doing great work. So I wish I had done that as an undergrad, and that's something I definitely want to continue to do as like an actual alumni now, is kind of lean more on the ASU network to learn more about, you know, the work that they're doing, and also learn about different career options. Because I mean, you know, we're all still pretty young. Our careers just started, and there's still a lot of room to move around and change things.
And then you three did make that a big point about interview prep and like the importance of just like interview prep and maybe some other professional development like opportunities that you, even in students and alumni, can possibly get more exposure to. And so my final question for you guys, especially, is for those like especially employers that are looking to recruit Sun Devils and even alum from Arizona State University. Besides like interview prep and other professional development opportunities, what advice, tips, or even like best practices would you give to those that are looking to recruit Sun Devils, or even some tips on how to engage with Sun Devils, especially in that virtual modality? And also, you can also talk about like Handshake, because that's the job board that we use at ASU. So what tips or advice would you give to those employers that want to recruit and engage our students and alumni?
I can start off. I currently hire current students for part-time work on campus. So especially now with obviously going into a hybrid sort of world that we're in, being able to really connect with students. Of course, this has always been a challenge, I would say, since the beginning and whatnot, but definitely being able to connect with individuals and say, you know what, I know that you're a student first, that classes come first. So sometimes it's just understanding that perspective of a student, is that, you know, they have to get on class on time. And so they won't be able to jump into this interview during these, you know, an 8 to 5 or so, whatever that may be. Definitely to give students options, because there's just a lot going on. And then two, secondly, I would say is that to not expect all of your students that they are students, current students, that they are that they know exactly what they're doing, right? So we talked a lot about this interview prep. I know that when I was a freshman, I interviewed one of the first times with just for a full-time, or for an internship actually, but it was my first time talking with a big company, and it was a double interview. So there was someone else in the room. And so that was like already a first thing that I was like, oh, I don't know what to do in this sort of environment. So I think that having that ease for those students, especially, so that you don't think, oh, they're ready and they've had full-time careers before, so they have this practice and experience. So sometimes having a little bit of leeway for them as well.
What advice I'd have for employers would be to have good energy at the career fairs. So that's how we kind of separate ourselves. So that would be my big advice for anybody else, just because especially virtually. So you got to find a way to separate yourself on the screen, which is kind of hard for me. So it's interesting, but yeah, in person, it's a lot different, but we'll get there.
Yeah, and I'll echo what Alexander and Cody have said, you know, making sure to meet students where they're at, right? So trying not to schedule things when there are probably going to be classes, and being flexible when things come up, because I mean, life just sometimes happens. And also the individual attention that you can give to students to the extent that you can, I think is really impactful. One of the things that GAO gave me when when I was interviewing and, learning more about the organization. And, I've had the opportunity to be on the other side too, with the recruiting students at ASU. We've only done one event. But I think one of the things that was nice was that even in this virtual environment, we were still able to kind of see each other face to face and have those conversations. And we were, one thing that I thought was really helpful, depending on your organization and what position you're hiring for, the extent that you can bring somebody who's like actually in the position that you're hiring for, I think is really helpful. Because they're the ones doing the work day to day. They're the ones who can answer like those like one-off questions that you don't really think of before you show up to the event, but then you're like, oh yeah, that's a really good question. And that person can answer it for you. So I think having varied experiences for the position you're hiring for can be helpful when you actually show up to the career fairs or other events.
Thank you, Myra, Alexandra, and Cody. That has been great. So this concludes the panel portion of today's event. Before we wrap up today's discussion, I now want to leave some time open for our Q&A portion of the event. So for our attendees, like I mentioned throughout the event, if you would like to ask our panelists any questions, this will be the time to do so. So please submit any questions that you may have in the chat. So we'll do our very best to answer all your questions. And then for our panelists, so if you would like to share your contact information with our audience members, you're welcome to provide your contact information in the chat feature as well. And so by providing your contact information, our attendees would be willing to reach out to you if they have any questions or would like to kind of further chat about maybe some of the information that you provided during the panel. So while I give our panelists and our audience members a few moments just to think about some questions and for you to submit your contact information, I just wanted to kind of just to be aware of some upcoming hiring events or career fairs that will be taking place at ASU this upcoming month. The first one, which will be the Career and Internship Fair, which will be encompass 2 days, which will be on September 22nd and the 24th. We also do have a fall tourism, nonprofit, and government career and internship fair that will be taking place on the 23rd for employers that maybe have opportunities in tourism, nonprofit, or in the government sector. And then the other fair or career fair I want to mention as well is we do have an alumni and new grad career fair that's taking place this December. So you can learn more about each event and register for those career fairs through Handshake. But if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have about any of those events. So it looks like we have a few questions popping up. So I'll kind of first ask this one to Cody, Alexandra, Myra. We have one from Christine who mentioned, this is talking about when we were discussing career counselors and how it was very impactful in kind of like our futures and kind of help guiding your decisions, especially for you guys and just with your network. And I'd be happy to follow up with you, Christy, after this event. Do you have any specific networks or professionals or even any other contacts that you maybe engaged with in the past that you think would be beneficial for our audience members or even some of our employer partners to possibly engage with, to possibly build their relationship and also maybe help promote some opportunities that they may currently have at their organization?
I definitely here's, you can check out, I think on LinkedIn, there's an ASU group of alums and stuff that you can always connect with. I would say that would be a great starting point, but also too, most potentially staff and professors are listed on various ASU foundation or ASU sites and stuff that you can actually check out and reach out. So, if you know a professor that's teaching a specific type of class that might be relevant to your industry, you might want to reach out with them and see if they are able to share some announcements or talk about any internships or programs that you all have too.
And then also there's another question that popped up in the chat about kind of discussing career opportunities with ASU classes and clubs. And just to kind of reiterate what Alexandra mentioned, especially ASU has a few different departments or even schools. So actively researching those schools' websites just to get more information about the different programs, majors, and also to look at the faculty list as well. For employers, you can reach out to Career and Professional Development Services or even myself, and we can happy to provide maybe some relationships or some of our liaison partners that might be interested in hosting or inviting employers, whether it might be virtual or primarily virtual in this case, to classes. And then For school clubs, groups, and coalitions, we do have a link called Sun Devil Sync that I'll drop in the chat here shortly. But that is another place where you can go to just to learn about all the different clubs, groups, and coalitions that are at ASU. We have a little bit over 1,200 across all of our different campus locations. So ASU Sun Devil Sync would be another great place that you can kind of search and kind of get the full list of all the different clubs that are at ASU. So I'll leave, we'll kind of leave it open just in case if there's anyone else that has any last minute questions, but I'll provide the Sun Devil Sync link right here in the chat. Just give me one moment. I did just drop the Sun Devil Sync link in the chat for those that would like to review all the different groups, clubs, and coalitions we have at ASU. So that concludes today's alumni panel. I want to thank Cody, Alexandra, and Myra for taking time out of your day to be part of this panel. I hope you thought it was a great and insightful group, and I hope some of these questions provide some great information that we can pass off to our audience. If any of you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself, and then our panelists also did provide their contact information in the chat as well. So feel free to reach out to them if you have any questions after the event. And then again, just to remind everyone that this event was recorded, so we will share the recording out with everyone after the event. But I hope everyone has a great day and a great rest of your week, and go Sun Devils.
Thanks, Al.
Thank you. Forza.